JDC West 2015 MIS presentation. We're going to thank our judges here, Rami Kapil from CPA, Barbara Schaffner from MCO, Ken Seacon from Camosun College, Leslie Brown, she's the Vice President of Connect here in Canada, Ian Brown from Island Business Solutions, and Katie McGilligan from Xerox. The competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, the judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the team some questions. The volunteer timekeeper will show time cards at various intervals to indicate the remaining time. No questions, comments, cell phones, or picture taking will be allowed from the audience at any time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the question and answer period. And we ask the audience to exit the room immediately after the question and answer period. Competitors, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Hall, Mr. Bryant, and thank you for choosing Sky Solutions. We're here today to provide you our expertise in information systems and business strategy. My name is Sabrina, and I'm the Director of Finance. I'm accompanied by my colleagues, Cameron, Director of Enterprise Systems, and Heidi, Director of Project Delivery. I understand that as two new entrepreneurs, you've taken on quite a bit of risk in this new venture, leaving stable careers in the accounting industry to pursue Wheelshare and to help. We are here today to help you fulfill your mission of creating a sustainable solution to stopping the hunger problem worldwide. And so, as you look towards the growth of your business, you've been very successful in the past year and a half. You've signed 75 businesses in the Alberta and BC provinces, and now you're looking to grow. You're looking to build this number to over 1,000, expanding across Canada and into the United States. More importantly, how will you do so with your current business processes? We understand that your time is valuable. As entrepreneurs, you are managing all aspects of the business almost, with help with your business development manager. However, you're finding that a lot of your time is spent with more manual processes, sending emails to your customers, working off Excel files, and this is not the most optimal solution. And so you're now looking to invest in IT to help you do so. More specifically, looking towards investing into a customer relationship management system that will help you accomplish this goal. Secondary considerations. As you're looking to build long-term and to build to your client base to over 1,000 restaurants, there's a few other considerations that you brought to our attention. One being your marketing strategy. Your business is only as valuable as the brand recognition that you have because you've built so much on building relationships with these restaurants. And so your brand loyalty and your social media presence will be key in order to help you do so. Secondly, formalizing business processes. You mentioned that other parts of your business are very manual, such as billing and your accounting software. So we're going to take a more thorough look at those. And lastly, we're going to briefly touch on human resources as you are growing and will need to look towards expanding your business by hiring additional help going forward. We have here an agenda for you to refer to throughout our presentation. Now, it is our job as a consultancy firm to provide you a strategy that will position your firm for long-term growth, but also one that's mindful of how you create values for your customer and how you will set yourselves apart from your competitors. And we decided to take a look at an adaptation of the Porter's 5 Forces model. You'll see that we've combined the power of buyers and the power of suppliers into the power of stakeholders. The reason behind this is because we believe that your stakeholder, your buyer, is the restaurants. And the restaurants are both your buyers because they're the ones buying the service from you, but also your suppliers because they are supplying you those charity dollars that you're able to use to make your charitable donations. And so we believe that they have a high power over you. There's many charitable organizations, not-for-profits out there, so the ease of switching from your firm to another is quite simple, as well as that you're not dependent. They're not dependent on you for their business, as some suppliers might be. Secondly, the threat of substitutes is also very high. As I mentioned, there's other not-for-profits, as well as you have to take a look at consumer charitable giving. If consumers choose to go to a restaurant and choose to purchase an item that is a meal item, then that is something that they can easily switch to do. They can choose to give their charitable donations to another firm or another not-for-profit quite easily. There's high intensity of competitive rivalry in this industry as there is a rise of corporate social and environmental responsibility in big business, as well as there is quite low barriers to entry. As you see yourself as entrepreneurs, there's little investment that went into starting this company, and so there's nothing preventing firms from also doing the same. And now I'd like to invite Cam to discuss some of the decision criteria that we evaluated in helping choose our alternatives.
Thank you, Sabrina. The main aspect of our presentation today is going to be working with you to pick a vendor and pick a customer relationship management system that best fits your needs. But we want you to focus not on your needs right now, but what your needs will be in the future. As a global company that provides meals to every continent with donations from every continent. So the theme today is expansion, it's growth. But more importantly, how is a customer relationship management system going to facilitate that growth? And which vendor is best suited to help you with your growth strategy? So we've come up with these decision criteria, and these are really focusing on a little bit more specific aspects of CRM systems and CRM vendors, because we want to look past just the basic aspects of all CRM systems, your contact management, your sales, your marketing management, and we want to focus on what firms and vendors use to distinguish themselves in the market and how that's going to best fit with your strategy. So the first one is a vendor that offers a mobile platform. And this is extremely important for you two as entrepreneurs because you do so much for the company. You're constantly meeting with restaurants, doing interviews, so you need a CRM system that you can constantly check on the go on your mobile device. And the second aspect is scalability. Right now you're a small firm and you should be paying small firm prices for your software, but you're looking to grow, you're looking to expand, and as you expand and add more users, you shouldn't have to switch your CRM system, and you shouldn't have to switch your main business processes. So you want a vendor that's going to grow with you, that's going to make it easy to support you, and that leads us into service. A vendor that's going to provide constant service, just not only in the beginning with implementation, but throughout the entire process. And this really leads to your, and comes down to your core competencies, which are not in IT, which are not in software. You need a vendor that's going to take this on, that's going to help you with software implementation, help you with training, help you with customization, so you can really focus on what you're good at, and that's building relationships with your partners in the communities. So we've come up with 3 alternatives, and we've narrowed it down to these 3 vendors, but before I go into what distinguishes these vendors, I really want to talk to you about why these 3. Why out of the thousands of CRM systems do we choose these 3? And the first reason is because all these offer cloud possibilities. The values for this is twofold. First, it allows for easy and flexible access to data as you expand throughout different continents, but it also allows you to take advantage of variable pricing. So you can pay as you use data, opposed to investing in an expensive server and then a maintenance team to support that server. So all 3 of these do this, but they also, all 3 of them, they allow for social media integration with the system, and this is extremely important. And this goes back to what Sabrina was talking about in terms of branding, and it kind of relates to your question to us about how do you create more value for the restaurants, for your partners. And that goes down to really spreading the word to the masses about the good that those restaurants are doing. And in today's world, this is measured through social media. How much time our customers spent working and seeing their brand online. So by integrating your CRM system with social media, you can be constantly posting updates in terms of sales on Twitter feeds, on Facebook accounts. So these companies and their followers and their customers can see the value, and this will not only add to their value, but your value as you are the one posting it, tagging your partners. But I really want to talk about what distinguishes them, because as I said, all 3 of these aspects have both of those. So first, we could eliminate sugar because it does not provide that mobile platform that is so important for your business and for the growth of your business. The second one we eliminated was Sage. And the reason for this was we had some concerns about the service they were going to provide, and that goes down to really examining their pricing strategy. They offer this one-time upfront cost, which is lower than the market standard. So by paying that one-time cost and not paying constantly, it doesn't give them the same motivation to constantly provide support because they're not constantly receiving payment from it. The other thing we looked at is, why is their cost so low? Why is their licensing fee so below market standard? And we believe that they are using their CRM as a way to penetrate the market to support their ERP system, and that's what they're really trying to sell, and that's where their margins come from. So by working with this company, you risk working with a company that's going to be focusing on their ERP customers opposed to you, which will be their CRM customers, who don't really need an ERP right now at this stage of your business. So it doesn't quite provide the service that Salesforce does. So we suggest that you try again to implement Salesforce because it is offered on a mobile platform. It is scalable. There's the low tier option to start when you're first implementing it to keep the cost down, and then you can add more users as you grow. And it does provide good service. But we know that you've been unsuccessful implementing Salesforce in the past. So before we made this recommendation, we really dived into why were you unsuccessful? Why did Salesforce not work the first time you tried the free trial? The first was your focus on all the things that Salesforce does that doesn't really relate to your company right now as a small company. And for this, and to answer this, I'd like to reinforce that you're looking into the future. Look not about the services you need right now, but the services you're going to need when you're operating in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in the United States. And then you can implement these modules, which of course don't have to be implemented at the beginning following a phased implementation, which Heidi will talk to you a little bit more about in implementation. The second aspect is you attempted to implement it or try it out and get a good feel of it through a 30-day free trial. And 30 days is not long enough to see the true value of customer relationship management. It's not long enough to communicate and train your employees and to really integrate Salesforce into your system, into your processes. So in the future, we suggest that you implement Salesforce using a long-term approach, taking the time you need to really implement it properly, do the training you need. Heidi's going to talk to you all about that right now in the implementation.
Thank you, Cameron. Now, as you can see, the implementation schedule in place really encompasses 3 phases over a 5-year time plan, and that corresponds very well with the information that you gave us over your aggressive sales growth for the next 5 years. So in the immediate phase, which is within the first year, we really split up implementation into 2 distinct groups. The first being your processes that might need to be adapted, changed, or evolved. And second, really your brand power, which as an organization is so key to the success of your company because, as Sabrina and Cameron mentioned earlier, not-for-profits are continually competing with each other. At the end of the day, each consumer has a limited amount of money that they're willing to donate, and we want to make sure that your brand is the most successful so that they donate to you. So in terms of processes, in the first year, we'd like you to begin contracts or discussions with Salesforce to really see if you can negotiate a contract with them. Now, because of your unique position in the not-for-profit industry, we think that by having some initial discussions with that organization, really explaining what your organization does, how it helps people around the world and within Canada, and how in the future you'll be able to really scale and provide them a lot of value for their business. We think by having those initial discussions, you might be able to really organize or negotiate a cheaper discount initially, or get some additional value-added services. As well, we'd like to really focus on training as a key change management tool for your organization. Though you do have only a few employees right now, we think that by really focusing on training for Salesforce and focusing on what tools are needed now and in the future is a very key way to make sure that your needs are scalable to what Salesforce can use. At this point as well, we'd like you to begin transferring past client and revenue data to Salesforce so you'll be able to use that and leverage it in the future. As well, we'd like you to focus on recruitment and selection of a marketing associate. And this associate will be responsible for marketing and sales, so to speak, for restaurant partners. So you'll really be able to generate that buzz within the restaurant industry. Now, one thing that we did want to touch on was volunteer professionals. Since your organization is a not-for-profit, and we took a look at your financial statements, and we recognize there isn't a lot of working capital to invest into full-time employees. So we're going to suggest having that marketing associate be a part-time employee first off, but also into volunteer recruitment and selection. So having professionals who are willing to donate their time into volunteering for your organization, whether that be a volunteer human resource officer or a volunteer accountant as you currently have. Having those professionals, there's certainly individuals in the professional world who are willing to donate their time or who are willing to gain experience and to help such a worthy cause. So that's just one consideration. As well, we'd like you to really integrate your processes and streamline your workflows. And this will allow for real-time mobile updates, as Cameron mentioned earlier. So how would that work? Well, as you can see here, we have a diagram that really outlines the streamlined processes. Salesforce would have an online sales invoice form, which would be sent to your restaurant partners. They would input their sales data into that form, and that would be instantly, in real time, be used or be updated on the cloud rather. So this would remove the redundancies that you currently have in terms of receiving emails, inputting data late, and not being able to really have that access to the real-time data that you need when you need it. So moving forward, we're also going to suggest having a pilot program for your chain stores. Now, we recognize you want to have a lot of aggressive growth for your chain restaurant partners in the future, but we think by having a pilot program with perhaps a local chain, let's say, for example, in BC, a chain restaurant that has 2 or 3 restaurants that aren't too large, but they're willing to partner with you. With this pilot program, you'll be able to see if there are any differences with your current partners, if there are any kinks that need to be worked out. And then once those issues, if any, are identified and really mitigated, you'll be able to roll that out on a larger scale. So have that quick win and then implement it on a larger scale, as well as develop KPIs and stakeholder feedback, as well as government grants so that you can really pursue that working capital at an easily. In terms of branding, we'd like you to increase your social media strategy and target really strategic emerging platforms such as Urban Spoon or other food-related social websites, and create contests, social widgets, and awards. So, for example, you can create an award for the most sales from an independent restaurant, and that provides value for the business because they're getting recognition, but also for yourself because it's driving those donations. And we'd like you to partner with corporate headquarters, for example. So perhaps one day a month, you'll be able to get $1 off all the sales from the cafeteria. That will really drive revenues quick, and it'll also increase your brand power. In phase 2, we'd like you to continue monitoring the success of Salesforce, as well as we'd like you to develop a mobile application. So this would, for example, if you were in a new city and you knew you wanted to use a restaurant that had this business model, you'd go onto your mobile app and immediately the closest 5 restaurants using this show up. Again, that adds value to your end consumer, to the restaurant partner, and to yourself because it drives sales. And continuing sales in non-traditional mediums such as food trucks, for instance. We'd also like to increase branding in athletic and social events and do some sponsorship level analysis. So what does that mean? Well, as you can see here, this is an example of some sponsorship levels you can provide to your restaurant partners. They don't necessarily all have to fit into one model. They can go into different levels depending on their contribution. This certainly is something we can discuss in more detail in future meetings. This is just an example. Now, in terms of phase 3, as you can see, this is a very scalable phase 3, meaning dependent on how successful phase 1 and 2 is, phase 3 will really depend on that. So for some basic guidelines, we'd like you to continue developing and monitoring your KPIs, or your key performance indicators, and your business growth. So perhaps at this point, you've generated enough revenue that you can bring on some full-time staff, that you can pay their salary and wage. So that's a really good time to really evaluate your business growth, as well as evaluate the data analytics from your KPIs and from your Salesforce data to really drive forth partnerships with future restaurants. So if you're seeing a lot of success in one side of the city, for example, you can target those restaurants more than as opposed to another. And we'd like you to begin expansion at this point as well. In particular in the United States and across the world, we really see that your organization has a world of opportunities to not only impact the individuals, not only impact your business and restaurant partners, but at the end of the day, to those individuals that you're helping. Whether that be someone who's being fed across the city or someone being fed across the world. Having that global perspective and really marketing that perspective is very key to the success of your organization. And that goes back to continuous brand analysis, really continuously analyzing the market and seeing what kind of brands you can become associated with. We have an implementation schedule here that you can refer to later if you like, as well as a financial analysis, which we can discuss in the question and answer period. So as you can see here, we have risks and mitigation that Cameron will discuss.
Thank you, Heidi. The primary risk is this internal resistance amongst your team because they have tried Salesforce before and they didn't like that. So to mitigate this, we suggest that you take a change management approach where in the next few months you really focus on communicating the need for CRM and specifically how Salesforce meets that need. Don't start by communicating how you're going to implement it, but why you're going to implement it and what value. We also think that you should continue focusing on your small businesses and these small restaurants moving forward so you don't lose that relationship, as well as refrain from putting any private customer information on the cloud because of the risks associated with cloud computing. So to summarize, you asked us today to talk about your CRM system and your growth and how they're intertwined. And we think that Salesforce is the best way to intertwine your current processes with customer relationship management through mobile platform, through long-term growth, through social media and interaction, and to really facilitate that relationship with your customers. You've done a great job of building this relationship on a small scale. CRM and Salesforce will help you implement those same relationships across the world. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
So you've done a good job of explaining how Salesforce can help us in certain areas. But the one area I feel that you didn't touch upon is the whole billing, getting the money from the restaurants and then sending the donation out to the charities. So, and that is a big issue for us because obviously we spend a lot of time writing checks and making sure we get that donation. So I didn't see any of that in the solution. So can you speak to that?
That's a good question. That we kind of tied into some of the basic functions of a CRM that we were talking about, those accounting functions, just simple invoicing measures, which are really going to speed up your processes. And we didn't talk as much about it because all three of the vendors we picked had those abilities. But through Salesforce and through that service that we were talking about, you're able to integrate that into your customer relationship management system. So it's just a simple invoicing process, receiving the checks, doing this online, and then working with your accountants and those professionals that Heidi talked about to really streamline the processes in the future. So using CRM as kind of the gateway to integrate your systems going forward and integrate those simple processes into your CRM through the data management processes in the system.
Can you go back to the cost line?
Absolutely.
So explain your thought process behind this.
Absolutely. So in order, we recognize that this recommendation had to be conservative, and therefore you won't see many costs associated with it. First one being the Salesforce. So we just took that as the fee per month per user based on the number of employees, and then the times 12 months. Secondly, the marketing manager, which is a lower salary due to the fact that they may only work part-time. Secondly, I just did a small income statement excerpt, just taking into consideration that we were going to move away from the traditional large number of full-time employees and maybe towards this volunteer and part-time employee. And so we scaled back on the number of full-time employees per year and just recalculated and normalized that salary per full-time employee in order for a more realistic measure. This being twofold. You will have less employees, however you won't see that your salaries are as low. The reason being is that the salaries you provided us for the next 5 years for all your full-time employees were quite low and almost below and close to minimum wage. And so we just wanted it to be a more realistic number to ensure that your employee will want to stay with your company going forward.
So what you're saying here is, so for this year forecasting out, it's going to be $2,100 for us to get all of this information and start to implement this kind of strategy right here through Salesforce. To get all that information into Salesforce and start leveraging the social media and all the different concepts that you discussed. $2,100?
2,100 for 2015 or per month? I thought I heard you say it per
This
month.
is per year, and this is taking into consideration the fee per month times number of employees for that year and times 12 months.
Okay. Is there a startup fee to get to Salesforce?
Is there a one-time implementation fee?
And what about professional services for training, implementation?
Those are absolutely great considerations. Those are some things we did think about while discussing Salesforce implementation in the boardroom earlier. Why we didn't necessarily include that in this implementation cost initially is because it really focuses on those contract negotiations that we spoke of earlier. We'd love for you, or we'd really like for your organization to have discounts and negotiated prices. And we're not necessarily sure where Salesforce will put you on the not-for-profit scale because of those, but those are absolutely considerations that we can come back to you with once we've had in-depth discussions with the Salesforce team.
The ideas were great. I like the idea, the concepts there. Without knowing what the price of this is, it just clearly doesn't it doesn't make sense. Like, we need to understand, because we're not just gonna get a software and mobile applications and all this stuff, right? And it just, we're not gonna be able to work with it. We're not gonna know how to do it. We've gotta concentrate on growing our business. So what kind of costs are gonna be associated with getting this off the ground?
That's a good question, and I'd like to break it up into a couple different costs. And we really focused here on the software costs and kind of those upfront costs, but in terms of a total cost of ownership perspective, we also looked into training costs. So this is twofold. This is not only training costs associated specifically with Salesforce, but also training costs associated with changing some of your business processes. Because as you implement a new system, as you mentioned, switching from this written invoicing to electronic, you're going to need to train your staff in terms of that. And some of the other costs associated, other than just training, is some outside services. As you look at contract negotiations with Salesforce, you can look at perhaps outsourcing some legal fees and some of the professional fees and those type of things, which of course are very variable depending on which firm you use. And as Heidi mentioned, depending on what discounts you get.
All right, I'll have to stop the question period there. Thank you.
So good.
So what we're going to do is please wait for his presentation. Okay, I was putting that on there as well. Okay, can you read out all of them? Yeah, and read it. Yeah, please read out all of them. Yep.
Unfortunately, open to